for that.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's City of Burnside Council meeting of the 25th of July 2023, opening at 7 p.m. Welcome to all of those who are present here in their chamber and those who are watching from home. Before we commence, please turn off your mobile phones or place them on silent if you have not done so already, as they are not to be used during council meetings. Please stand and remain silent during the acknowledgements, with the exception of those who can stand. Okay, we acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the original custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to all those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. We also consider in our thoughts all those who today are being affected by war around the globe and especially those in Ukraine. Finally, we seek guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. Just as a reminder, since it's been a few weeks, to use your microphone to register your intent to enter the debate and wait until you've been asked to speak. Please turn off your microphone when you've finished speaking, be respectful and patient while listening to other speakers, and don't interrupt or interject during the debate. Now to the agenda, and we have 2 agendas tonight, or agendae. If you wish to withdraw an item for debate, please indicate this quickly, otherwise I will seek a mover and seconder immediately. We have 2 agenda to get through tonight, so I would appreciate you being succinct and hope you have sought answers to questions prior to the meeting. If we complete the agenda for tonight's meeting, we will begin, or can begin, the meeting agenda for the 11th of July any time from 8:30 onwards, if we should happen to finish the first one by then. We have one apology from Councillor Henschke, and we have a leave of absence from Councillor Dawes. Is there anyone who wishes to declare an interest? And you have got a reminder about conflict of interest that has been placed on your desks this evening. If there is no one for this meeting, then I will move on to confirmation of minutes. And I seek a mover. Councillor Turnbull? Sorry, no?
We didn't have the last meeting, so there's no minute.
I thought there was something we had to declare. Oh, we do that for the next one. Okay, thank you. So I just thought that single page thing we had to do then. Apologies. Okay, there's no adjourned business. Well, there isn't a big adjourned business, but that is the subject of the next meeting. We do have one deputation tonight, and that is from Mr. Martin Godfrey. So if Mr. Godfrey would like to come forward. And you have done this before, Mr. Godfrey, so just your name and suburb, and then you know you have 5 minutes with a warning bell of 4 and questions after. Thank you.
My name is Martin Godfrey. I'm a resident of Kensington Park. I'm here today to make a deputation on agenda item 13.1, approvals for driveways and gutter crossings, maintaining footpath accessibility standards. In your documentation pack, you should find a handout. I'll give you a moment to find it. This one? Okay, most people seem to have it. Good. First of all, I should explain the impact of sideways slope of a footpath, otherwise known as crossfall, has on a wheelchair user. The sideways slope in this diagram causes the wheelchair to veer down the slope. To counteract this, the wheelchair user has to push harder on the right-hand side than the left side. As the sideways slope increases, the effort required to keep on the footpath increases. Eventually, the wheel on the left-hand side starts to slip, resulting in the user careering out of control down the slope towards the road. To manage this, the Australian standards limit the crossfall to a maximum of 1 in 40. Generally, when councils lay footpaths, they're compliant with this standard. The problem comes when new developments involve digging up the footpath in order to build a new or modified driveway. The next page. This page shows 2 developments that resulted in previously compliant footpaths becoming non-compliant. In the photo on the left, the original garage was at the level of footpath. For some reason, the owner decided to build a new garage with the floor significantly elevated from the footpath, thus creating an issue at the boundary. This was solved by laying a new driveway with a uniform gradient from the lip of the garage to the curb, resulting in a very high crossfall. The driveway was subsequently modified, but is still non-compliant with the accessibility standards. On the right, the driveway has also been constructed with a uniform slope from the garage to the curb, resulting in a non-compliant footpath. In addition, the driveway uses a material that is different from the footpath, producing a visual break in the footpath and giving the owner the impression that they have the right to do things like park across the footpath. Next page. This page shows 2 examples of urban design. In the Mount Barker example, the use of different materials clearly connects the road to the driveway and the footpath to the front door. The driveway stops and starts each side of the pre-existing footpath, reinforcing the requirement under the road rules that vehicles using crossovers give way to pedestrians using the footpath. In the Campbelltown example, houses are considerably elevated from the road. When a new house is built, the driveway is designed to slope from the garage to meet the level of the existing footpath at the boundary. This results in some quite steep driveways, but they're usable and the footpaths remain compliant. So what is the difference between the two Burnside examples and the two examples of good urban design? I expect it's that these councils have clear policies on the construction of new driveways. Next page. Here is an example of an advisory note that were added to a City of Burnside decision notification form earlier this year. I'd like to draw your attention to 3 areas. At the top, the wording clearly identifies that new driveways crossovers will need to be in accordance with Council's specifications and general conditions. In the middle, the wording clearly identifies that the new driveways will need to meet the level of the existing footpath. Matching existing footpaths is the key feature that is present in the 2 examples of good urban design, but is missing from the 2 Burnside examples. The wording at the bottom indicates these notes were added at the planning consent stage. It's important to do it at this stage before the developer invests time and resources in preparing detailed plans for development approval. It's left to the development approval stage. Developers could challenge the council on the grounds that new requirements have been imposed and they were not previously made aware of. Finally, it should be noted the words are advisory notes, therefore left to the council's discretion at the development application stage. So my question for you this evening is, why can't these advisory notes be added to all decision notification forms for planning applications that involve new or modified driveways, crossovers? Okay, thank you.
I'm looking for anyone to ask any questions. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for coming along tonight. We've had lots of discussions about this, so and you're not the only person who uses a wheelchair in my ward. I have 2 other very vocal constituents who also complain to me about the level of footpaths and how difficult it is. Can you perhaps outline to us what it feels like when you're using a wheelchair and you have to use, and you're trying to get along a footpath on that angle?
What it's going to do is it's going to steer you. Sorry. What it's going to do is it steers you towards the road. So as the surface changes, like you're having to steer this way, then that way, so you're constantly changing. Can you imagine pushing a supermarket trolley along some of these footpaths? People know what supermarket trolleys do. You know, they just veer to one side or other, and that cross slope is what causes that.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you very much for coming in and raising this issue with us. I was just, of these 2 examples, where exactly in Kensington Park are they?
The first one is on, it's at the back of May Terrace on Uxbridge Street.
Okay.
And the other one is on Park Road, but they're not the only examples in the Burnside area.
There are a lot more.
I live on Shipsters Road. They're just around the corner from me, so they're the ones that I come across
that you
most
use
often.
the most, yeah, and you have to deal with the most often. Thank you very much.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you again. The other issue is what other councils, from your knowledge, manage the process like you're asking or suggesting that we do at Burnside, which I assume you recommend would be more systematic and put the onus back on the developer to deal with the process at the beginning? Is that the intent?
Yeah. Well, I recently put in an application in through Norwood, Paynham and St Peter's Council, and they put in similar, they put in at the planning application stage specific things to say that I needed to get permissions and all of that sort of thing and comply with the council specifications. Though I'd actually think that the Norwood Paynham Council wording, the one from Burnside Council in the example I gave, are actually probably better because it dictates things like liability of the council and things like that. So it's actually quite well, the Burnside example one's quite well worded. It's just not applied to all applications.
Councillor Jones.
Martin, so if this footpath footpath is non-compliant with the standards, do you then complain to council? And if so, what does council then do?
On some occasions, they'll actually go out and have a look, but on most occasions, nothing gets done because, well, it was, well, I don't know why.
Are there any other questions? Right, if there not being any other further questions, then we will thank you very much, Mr. Godfrey, for coming in and for your deputation and your documentation. Councillor Davey?
Thank you, Mayor. Could I move that we hear, I know it's my motion on notice, but considering that Mr Godfrey and his partner are here, that we move that item to the first business of consideration?
Yeah, so just item 13.1.
That's right.
Right,
Thank you. Move that
can I just
forward.
have a show of hands if you support that? All right, thank you very much. Then we will move to 13.1, and Councillor Davey, it is your motion, so you can speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. My motion is that, and I'll read it out clearly so that everybody at home can hear, in compliance with Disability Access Standard 1428-1 of 2009, amends Council's driveway and gutter crossing general conditions in Section 9 to read finished levels on driveways within 3 metres of the gutter must be a minimum of 200 millimetres above the level of the adjacent gutter for rainwater control on low sides of the road. The cross slope of the footpath portion of the driveway apron must not exceed a 1 in 40 cross fall, and requests the assessment manager reviews the council's advisory notes on its decision notification form where full development approval is granted against those used by the City of Norwood, Payneham and St Peters, and implements any improvements identified. And I would also like to move a variation with a third dot point, if I may, and that is that Council receives a report on the outcomes by the end of November 2023. I've moved this way, and you've heard Mr Godfrey's deputation and experiences in this area, and as I alluded to before, I have had at least 2 other constituents, or even more in my ward, who use wheelchairs, raise this issue with me. I believe that we need to give more attention to ensure that the disability standards, 1428 of 2009, are equitably and systematically applied across the City of Burnside to ensure that changes that are happening across our suburbs, where we know there is development happening significantly, so that these developments maintain safe levels so that all users can use them conveniently and safely, particularly those in our community who use wheelchairs, walking aids, gophers and other appliances. The major changes are occurring as a result of development, and where it appears that builders, homeowners, renovators may be given priority over access to and use of City of Burnside footpaths, as we've heard tonight, verges and gutters to facilitate changes to or expansion of their driveways, often and increasingly on sloping sites. This can mean that the footpaths end up with an increased fall, which makes the journeys of wheelchair and gopher users particularly difficult and is, I believe, contrary to Disability Discrimination Act requirements. Other councils have introduced systems to manage this, and I, along with members of our community who use these equipments, believe it's quite feasible that we can do otherwise with some tweaking of our systems. So hopefully you'll support this tonight and just get this small adjustment to our systems to help this process. Thank you.
Councillor Hubel, you wishing to second?
Yes, I'll reserve my right to speak to it though.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. In order for proper process, I'm happy to offer a variation of number 3 to Councillor Davey, since you're not allowed to change your motion once when you move it. So I'll offer that as a variation. Potentially you might like to accept that and the seconder might. Is that okay? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cornish. I'm happy to accept that variation. Thank you.
Councillor Jones?
Thank you. Look, I have to ask the question, why does council let people amend our footpaths so they don't comply with disability standards?
Madam Mayor, I might get a comment from Mr Cooper. Yep, I'll throw it across to Mr Cooper.
Through the Mayor, apologies for the delay. I really struggling to think of any instances where we have approved a footpath that is not in compliance with any legislation. Certainly when we receive complaints after, if there are any concerns, then generally one of our traffic engineers or one of the members of staff that deals with the Section 221 process will go out and undertake a full inspection. They're qualified engineers and they will report back whether there are any variations to the legislation. And at that point, if there are any issues, they're addressed. So we certainly don't set out to agree to any footpaths that aren't compliant, to my knowledge.
I don't have anyone on the screen, so Councillor Hubel, you wish to second or speak? No further speaking. So Councillor Davey, we're going back to you.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions and comments. I think this is about a matter of efficiency. I think we've been shown, or there's been an indication of how other local government agencies manage this. I think it would be probably much more efficient if we dealt with this process at the application stage and didn't have to send people back or our staff, whether they're engineers or whatever, to review a situation that has eventuated in a complaint. I would like to see our systems operating such that everybody knows up front what the development incurs, what it means, how it interfaces with the streetscape and the other facilities that the members of the public have to use, especially our footpaths. So I think it would be beneficial to the staff of Burnside as well, the administration of Burnside, as well as our community, to look as far as we can to devise our procedures so that we have the most streamlined application process and everybody up front knows what is required of them when they're building across or in proximity to our footpaths. So I hope you support this motion. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Now we will move back to the original agenda, and that is I'll go through the reports and see if any of them wish to be withdrawn for debate. First one is the George Bolton Swimming Centre, 11.1. I've still got nobody on my screen, so... sorry? Okay, I'll move it.
Who's pulling it?
Now I've got 4 people on the screen. So, Councillor Cornish, I think you have
Yeah,
had your button.
I was ready to, when you say ready to move, I was ready to move.
So it's just that nothing was coming up on my screen. So I was looking for something to be here. It is now. So you wish to move the motion as it is?
So has someone pulled it?
No. I think, We've got a mover already and a seconder, so I think the motion needs to be debated. I put it to the vote.
Oh, no.
Sorry, not debated. It needs to be.
I was waiting for it to be moved.
But nobody came on the screen, so.
Well, it needs to be pulled to be debated with respect. I was waiting to hear if anyone else was going to pull it. When they weren't, I pressed the button.
You were the fourth name to go up on my screen, and
Yes.
I already had one.
I'm happy to pull it then.
Okay,
Thank
have
you.
it withdrawn. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Reconciliation plan, 11.2. Councillor Turnbull, you wish to withdraw it for debate? Code of practice, access to meetings. Councillor Turnbull, can you turn your microphone off first, please? Code of practice, 11.3. Then I'm seeking a mover. Councillor Cornish. Seconded, Councillor Zing. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Policy review, 11.4. Councillor Davey, you wish to withdraw it?
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor's activity report. Councillor Turnbull, you wish to withdraw it?
Yes, thank you.
Chief Executive's report. Sorry, Councillor Turnbull, you need to turn your microphone off because I'm not sure if somebody is trying to withdraw this. Councillor Davey, you are?
Thank you, Mayor.
Right, so we shall go back to the beginning and the first name on the screen.
Thank you, Worship.
Councillor Cornish, thank you. You're moving it.
I move in accordance with the officer's recommendation. I think it was a great report. It's something we have to do to absolutely get rid of our carbon footprint and the hugest component of the City of Burnside's carbon generating asset. So I think it's extraordinarily important that we do. I'm very heartened to see the amount of solar panels that have also gone up to help us with the electricity side of things when that gets switched on. So I'm certainly happy to move in accordance with the officer's recommendation.
Then I seek a seconder. Councillor Wilkins.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'm very happy to support the motion. And in my viewing of the site, I'm pleased with the design that is putting the plant room behind, the extra heat pump behind the plant room and not taking up the green space in the swimming pool on that western side. I've sat in that particular area at a primary school sports day when the pool is chock-a-block with children. That is valuable sitting and viewing space, whether it's a swimming carnival for primary schools or whether it's just the general public. The actual design and the audio-visual that I saw on the day when I went down to view it was really instructive, and I just thought we cannot put another bulky building to the south of the existing plant room. Behind is better. The path can accommodate the rear of the heat pump room, and I think perhaps I don't want to tidy up the path, but it can be made a little bit more attractive. I know it's a goat path, but really it's in the middle of the city. It's not the goat paths I've seen out in the wild. And I think in all this can be improved. And also on the creek at that point, there is some remnant stone walling on the eastern side of the creek bed that could actually be added to and improved when we're doing this. So take all that into consideration. I think this is an excellent example of how we can meet our obligations. So I do second this report.
Councillor Turnbull.
I have a question, please. I'm wondering if the ever-increasing price of electricity has been factored into this project, even with solar panels.
Through Madam Mayor, the short answer is yes, it has. But I think it's important to reflect on the primary driver of this, which is the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And then as we go on, the grid is becoming greener in that more of the electricity generated in the state will be renewable. But also, as time goes on, we will have obviously more renewable energy generated by the council to complement that. But even if the electricity price does go up, that won't outweigh the benefits we're going to achieve. And if you think about in the report where it talks about the whole of life costs over 20 years, the net gain to council is, a 7-figure magnitude. So it is a substantial savings for council should they proceed with this route. Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I can't support this motion and this proposal at this stage. I'm not convinced that this huge investment is what we need at this time, quite apart from the climate that we're in terms of the financial climate. I'm not entirely convinced that the timing's right, that we actually need to do this. I know we talk about the desirability of it, and that's not denied, but I'm not sure that the gas boilers at death's door, as we've been led to believe. I haven't seen any evidence of that. But in terms of, and I'm all for reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions, and we've been doing some great work on that basis. But I draw your attention to page 17, and that's the period covering 2018 to 2020. We've actually reduced our carbon emissions by 644 tonnes. We've significantly, and I acknowledge the swimming centre is a large part of it, but we've actually got an increase in our vehicle emissions. There are other areas which is apparently 19 tonnes. I just don't think, I think there are other ways that we can actually be reducing our emissions, which would take the pressure off the need to expend all of this money on an upgrade. It's certainly desirable, but I think it's also environmentally very intrusive on Hazelwood Park. I think it's a huge building. It's impacting on a very highly utilised area, both in the swimming centre and outside, which is used by pedestrians. I think there's also what we haven't been told is what the environmental cost of actually doing this building is, what emissions will be expended in constructing this building. So that's in terms of the carbon emissions that are generated. So I don't see the need for it at this stage, and I think we can do better. So I don't support this tonight. Thank you.
Just before I ask Councillor Zing, Mr Cowley would like to make a comment.
Madam Mayor, I just want to clarify one point that was made by Councillor Davey. We did receive external engineering advice on the life that's left in the gas boilers, and the commentary was it is at end of life. Now, it could go now or it could last for a number of years longer. That's the science behind it, but the advice we did receive was that they should be replaced now. I just want to clarify that for council.
Councillor Zing.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question to the CEO, probably for Barry. For page 22 and page 23, there's two sets of figures. Is the total project cost 3712 or 4852? Just to confirm the numbers.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, if I can just clarify for Councillor Zing, the first figure you were quoting was 3712.
Page 22, page 23. What the final figure was for the total investment.
Sorry, can you just, what page are you on?
Page 22.
22 and 23.
That's the right. The page before that.
Okay. If I can, actually, I might get Mr. Kent clarified, just so I don't get the quotation wrong. Mr. Kent?
Through the Mayor, the figures you're looking at is in the workshop presentation that we gave to Council, which was conducted by Dr Phil. That's the net present value, so that's the whole of life cost of the installation plus all the electricity cost over the life of the heat pump. So 20-year cost is estimated at that stage.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. For the City of Burnside to become carbon neutral by 2030, it would be, or will be, a magnificent achievement. We have to start somewhere, and with the swimming pool taking a quarter of the council's total emissions, it's time to replace that gas heater. Now, the two designs that have been, there's the approved and the alternative in our notes, and for me, I would go for the approved one, which is in the officer's recommendation. For me, it's a bit ugly, but it's slightly more preferable to the gobbling up green space of the alternative, so I will vote for it. Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify again about the lifespan of the current boiler. I wasn't quite clear about the that it will be not blow up, but will run out of usefulness sometime in the next 5 years. It's all very vague. We haven't actually got a figure.
No, through you, Madam Mayor, I don't... Sorry, I must apologise if it wasn't clear. The advice is it should be replaced now. Now, as per anything, the boiler may reach the end of its useful life tomorrow, or it could last another couple of years. We don't know. But the engineering advice, based on their assessment, is that it should be replaced now so that we have no uncertainty going forward. Yeah.
Councillor Jennings.
Oh. Do you want me to turn?
Thank you. After meeting our professor the other week, I've gotten through 1.5 books on going carbon neutral. This now gas gives out carbon monoxide, not CO2. How many times more? How much worse is carbon monoxide as a value compared to carbon dioxide?
Oh, who knows that?
It's a real odd thing because with when you're burning things, there's different byproducts, and when you're burning gas, it's carbon monoxide that's released. So,
Burning methane?
Just give me a minute, Madam Mayor.
Yes. That's good.
sorry.
I'm not sure. It's burning methane versus burning.
Can I just ask you maybe to share with the others your reasoning for the question, that's all? While they're finding out the answer, hopefully finding out the answer. Just in relation to relevance, that's all. I'm trying to get the point of why you're asking that particular question.
So when we had the meeting with our professor the other week, I discovered that methane is 16 times worse than carbon dioxide, and that was absolutely fascinating because I had no idea why all these farmers were getting really grumpy and the National Party would be getting a bit. They sound a bit out of touch. But then I found out that the methane that's released from animals is 16 times worse than carbon dioxide. And so I just looked a little bit deeper and I'm actually more confused.
Okay.
Through Madam Mayor, what I can confirm is that I don't know about the debate about carbon monoxide and dioxide, but Dr. Phil has, whatever the figures are, Dr. Phil has converted it into the contemporary language of carbon dioxide, which is the measure that is used for greenhouse gas emissions broadly. So I'm comfortable that the figures Dr. Phil's quoted are correct. Yep.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I had a question about the noise from the plant. Page 29, there's a table about which identifies decibel levels, and this is very quiet, alleged to be very quiet, between 35 and 39 decibels to be generated by this plant. I've been asked to ask and raise the issue of who signs off once this project is completed. Do we get a certification from the manufacturer that the plant will not make any more noise than that? Is that part of our procurement strategy?
Through you, Mayor, I'll refer to Mr. Kent.
Through your worship, as part of this process, we actually engaged an independent acoustic engineer as part of the tender process. It's been designed in consultation with that acoustic engineer who's provided the EPA guidelines. They'll be involved all the way through the project process, and it'll be checked by the engineer at the end and given a certification that states it meets the design specifications.
Is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? Councillor Joan.
Question. I might make a speech, though.
That's fine.
Look, I've raised this before, but I really question the folly of heating an outdoor pool to 27 degrees at 6 o'clock in the morning. And look, I come from England where we had unheated open pools. Mr. Kent over there, he comes from Scotland, they had unheated. Imagine how tough he must be. Look, here's the obvious way to cut our energy consumption is not to heat it so early in the day for a few people. That would cut our energy use a lot. Look, I have to say, I was shocked when I saw the size of this building for the heat pump. I had no idea it was going to be this big, and I'm pretty certain that most people around this table had no idea it'd be that big either, because I think that might have changed the conversation earlier. On the other hand, I do think it is going to save us money in the long run, so that would have to be a positive. That's definitely a positive, saving us money, other than not heating it at all, of course, which would save even more money. Look, the swimming pool's losing money anyway, and so, well, you could close it. You could restore it to open space and plant trees in line with our climate emergency declaration. And the other thing I'm going to say, I'm going to put Councillor Jennings' mind at rest. The good news about methane is it doesn't persist in the atmosphere, because the natural action of sunlight on water produces hydroxyl radicals which react with methane to produce carbon dioxide. So it's great. And also, if you burn methane in the atmosphere, it produces carbon dioxide, not carbon monoxide. Otherwise, we'd all die of poisoning. Yeah. So anyway, so I don't know. I still don't know how to vote. But I thought, you know, we can't start the next meeting till 8:30. So you'd have the benefit of my wisdom for 2.5 minutes.
Councillor Turnbull.
This is my second question, is that okay? Yes. And just refresh me, why does that screen have to be so high, please? I've forgotten. Why does it have to be such a gigantic screen and going to have some ghastly vinyl thing on it?
Yeah. No, through you, Madam Mayor, it's a good question. The reason it has to be so high is the noise abatement technology requires simply that size to operate, and also we need to ensure adequate ventilation around the equipment. And believe me, if it was possible to design it at a much lower profile, we absolutely would have pursued that. I'm heartened by the rework that we've done around the design of the side walls. You'll notice in the new imagery we've suggested setting back kind of the top third of the structure, which and you may beg to differ, but I think it does visually improve it. But it is a necessary, the height and bulk is certainly necessary, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I just want to, before I go back to the mover, Councillor Cornish, and that is just the 6 o'clock swimmers are a very large group in the morning, and if they were not swimming at Burnside with the heated pool, they would be going somewhere else and spending their money, which is a concern because we do need to maximise the usage of that pool, and it's very, very popular time between 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning with those people who are working. So, Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you everyone for your comments and contribution to this debate. You know, some of the things that I picked up, gas versus electricity. Gas prices are going up just as much as electricity prices are. In fact, that's the reason for the electricity prices going up in this country at the moment, is because the gas price has been going up. So it's which one, at least we can make a little bit more electricity ourselves rather than we can't really make gas. But I'm sure Councillor Jones might be able to tell us how we might be able to do that at some point. In terms of the replacement, yes, we do need to replacement. It's all about timing. We need to do it on our time frame. We can't have these the gas heaters just fall apart, and then we potentially would have to go through a whole process of designing something, then building something and putting it all in place. And we might lose an entire season, and we'll have some very angry residents with an entire swimming season of no swimming pool to relieve themselves from our very, very warm summers. So the timing is very important, that we actually do this on our time frame and not on the equipment's time frame. So I do hope you support it. It does do a lot of benefit for the City of Burnside, and eventually will save the council money in the future. So please support the motion.
All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. A mover of Reconciliation Action Plan, Councillor Hallett.
I think that was Jenny.
Oh. No, you don't have to go that way. Remember, the rules have changed. The rules we have not been abiding by, and I reminded you of that at the last council meeting. Whoever withdrew has no authority to or possession of it. That is just an action that we go through to determine whether or not it should be moved or not. Yes, that came up in our workshop, definitely, and we used it at the last council meeting. So at the moment, I have no one on the screen except I did have Councillor Hallett. So if you wish to move it, you may.
Thank you, Mayor.
We all attended the same meeting, and where it was made quite clear to us, so please don't have any conversation or argument over it. Could I have Mr. Cooper, would you like to intervene at this point, or governance like to take over? Sorry, it might be...
Madam Mayor, there's no need.
There's no need?
The rules were explained as you
Absolutely
said,
explained.
So that is the way our meeting procedures are written.
Go ahead, Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. I congratulate the original RAP working group and council staff on the consultative development of the City of Burnside's Reconciliation Action Plan and its recent endorsement by Reconciliation Australia. I also thank the administration for the development of the simple but aspirational and clear anti-racism statement. These two documents represent an invitation to walk together towards a better future for our diverse community. By acknowledging all of our heritage and all of our cultures, we elevate and enhance the experience of community within Burnside. Accordingly, I endorse each of the 3 recommendations and urge my fellow councillors to also support the recommendation that Council notes the endorsed City of Burnside Reconciliation Statement Plan from Reconciliation Australia in Attachment A. 2, adopts the City of Burnside Anti-Racism Statement contained in Attachment B. And 3, endorses developing and implementing an Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan as budgeted in the 2023-24 Annual Business Plan and Budget. Finally, I'd like to read 2 statements from the Burnside Heritage Survey South Australia Part 1 General Report amended in July 1987. I have seen the plains and forests around Adelaide change from their original desolation into a continuous mass of farms, some thousands of acres bearing their crops of wheat, maize and barley. I can scarcely imagine a more interesting scene than to observe a country in the course of being rescued from a state of nature. And, as with the land, so with Aborigines, the original occupiers, the heathen, savage native also had to be tamed, civilised and made anew into the European image or perish. The Reflect Reconciliation Action Plan, together with the City of Burnside Anti-Racism Statement, have the potential to move the City of Burnside towards a healing and inspiring future. And I've got the references for that if anyone's interested. Thank you.
Councillor Hubel, you wish to speak now? Second?
I'll second and reserve my right at this time.
Councillor Turnbull?
I'd like to move an amendment, please, to this one. My amendment is that number 2 is removed from the recommendation, that the Burnside anti-racism statement be deferred and moved to an information discussion in a workshop.
This is an alternate motion as opposed to an amendment, so you need to wait until this motion is lost in order to move your alternate motion. If it is not lost, then the motion that is on the table now remains. Correct?
Can I move an amendment that just take number 2 out?
No, it's a dramatic amendment to the
That's not dramatic. Is that dramatic?
I'm not going to participate in any argument at this point in time. I've had governance advice on this, and this is the advice I've been given. That's what I'm sticking to. So we will vote. We will work on this motion. And Councillor Davey, you have next right to speak.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to second this motion.
The alternate motion?
Yes, the alternate motion.
Just let's wait. We can't do the alternate motion until we've dealt with this motion.
Can I speak then in support of it? Thank you. I agree. I think this is a wonderful document, the Reconciliation Action Plan, and I especially love the artwork, and my commendations go to the 2 artists who I think have done a fabulous job, especially the way it represents all the thought that's gone into it to represent all of our suburbs, our situation with the hills and the plains and then the sea and the colours. It's just magnificent. And I agree and support all of the work that's been done by the committee, but I don't see the need for a racism stops with us statement. I think it's quite aggressive. I think we need to workshop it and actually consider it more deeply. I don't know any other councils that have this sort of very overt statement. Plus, while it deals with our reconciliation plan and that process, we also have a huge multicultural community here, and I think we would do better to consider in perhaps workshopping it, how we deal with our Indigenous community and our multicultural community as well, and that it isn't all subsumed into the Reconciliation Action Plan. So I think it needs to be much milder. I think it's too inflammatory, and I think I would support that this is taken out and that we consider it and workshop it down the track. So hopefully you'll vote accordingly and support that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. I too acknowledge that considerable effort has gone into the Reconciliation Action Plan, and I commend everybody that's been involved in doing so. However, I too find this racism statement quite aggressive and will not support it. I believe we need to be promoting peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, providing justice for all. Racism in any form is completely unacceptable. We need to be welcoming and nurturing to all people from all cultures, with equality, understanding and compassion as one. To feel valued, supported, included and have opportunities to participate in social, economic, cultural, spiritual and political life within our community. In researching for this motion, I struggled to find any other council with a racism statement. The councils that I researched, and there were many, addressed racism compassionately and respectfully in their individual policies with strength in diversity and social inclusion. I believe this racism statement, like Councillor Davey, is quite antagonistic and inflammatory, and for that reason I will not support it. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, look, I agree. I'm not voting for this anti-racism statement. I think it's wholly unnecessary. We've been going for 150 years without one, and I really don't see that it adds anything. Look, I have to say, I'm probably going a bit further than most people here. I don't see the point of doing another reconciliation plan, stage 2. At the end of the first one, I don't feel any more reconciled, and all we've done is bought a painting. Councillor Davey likes it. It doesn't do much for me, frankly, but I can confidently say if we do stage 2, I'll feel no more reconciled and we'll have just bought another painting. So let's save the ratepayers' money. Let's stop paying $2,000 a pop for smoking ceremonies. I see no point in warding off evil spirits. I don't believe in them. Let's pack it in and save the ratepayers some money. So won't be supporting.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, this recommendation is entitled Reconciliation Action Plan Update. Yeah. So, but then there's an anti-racism statement, and they've been lumped in together. Actually, although they are related, they are not. The anti-racism part is a much wider issue and really should be dealt with separately. So by definition, reconciliation, especially to Indigenous people, is a strengthening of relationships between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people and non-Indigenous groups. Presumably, this is the definition that applies to this recommendation. But the definition of anti-racism, to the Oxford Dictionary, opposed to, intended to prevent racism, unfair or harmful treatment of people based on race. Okay, there's an overlapping, but there's also a dissimilarity. So it's varied. In my opinion, we need to debate each issue separately and perhaps be wise to workshop the anti-racism charter, discuss it and make sure we get it right the first time. As it is, this racism, it stops with us statement comes across as angry, unnecessary, aggressive and is too strongly worded. I'd never endorse it, as it's actually quite offensive, a lecturing, antagonistic statement which has been presented to us. Basically, the report focuses on reconciliation. Page 45 details all the reconciliation events, occurrences happening as in the city of Burnside, like First Nation toys for Toy Library, etc. All beautifully done. But just because reconciliation charters being drawn up in every constitution, it doesn't mean we need to rush into it with all the anti-racism stuff as well, combining the two and not giving due consideration to both. So I'd like you to consider carefully and remove, if I can, remove that anti-racism section so we can discuss it separately and bring it to council on a separate issue at a later date. Thank you.
I will just point out that everyone was offered the opportunity to comment on that statement. It was sent out as an information document, and I know at least 3 people, or maybe 4, I can't remember from the document, from the report we've got on our table, that people did actually make comment and make changes to, or suggest changes to it. So people were given the opportunity to comment. Who else wishes to speak on the matter or ask any questions? First of all, Councillor Cornish, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Tim.
Thank you, Worship. Obviously, there's quite a lot of debate about the anti-racism statement, which is an action of the Reconciliation Action Plan that we've got. My question is the wording so dissimilar that is being handed down by the Australian Human Rights Commission for, and I've noticed, and I did a search, I noticed a lot of councils around Australia are actually adopting it, although they're not saying racism ends with us, they're saying racism ends with me. That's the campaign, not us. So by watering it down, we've watered it down to our community rather than me and owning our own racism. So has the wording of the actual text changed dramatically from what's been handed by the Australian Human Rights Commission with their campaign to stop racism in this country?
Through the Mayor, I might just get Mr Cooper just to clarify that one for us.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, I can confirm, though, it hasn't changed. It's in line with those words.
So can you just repeat that it does reflect the human rights statement?
Yes, that's correct.
Councillor Turnbull, you wish to ask a question?
Yes, please. Finance, page 41, numbers 16 and 17. What is this money, 48,000 plus 31,500, being allocated for? How will it be spent?
There's 2 parts to that. The 48,000 refers to money we allocated in our prior year budget. And if we look at this report actually lists them, if I can just find the achievements. From point 41 talks about the achievements and where that money would have been expended. Paragraph 41. There's quite a list there, over 15 odd items. And if I can just go back to I might seek some clarification. Just 2 seconds. Just read paragraph 17. I just wonder if Mr Cooper could give me a little bit of clarification on our next year's budget of the 31,500.
Yeah, through the Mayor, the report really covers it all in paragraph 17. The 31,500 is the amount that's been included in this year's budget, and it's to complete the actions under the Reflect RAP. Includes the payments for the Ghana representations in the working group, and it also includes the start of the innovative RAP that was approved as part of the budget too. We've also included in there, I haven't got the breakdown of it, but some funding to establish the Ghana Advisory Group, which is another action commitment under the plan.
Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Thank you. It seems to me that there's 2 issues here, the reconciliation, which is very important, and that's a whole subject of current debate. But there's also multicultural affairs, and so my question is, have the Multicultural and Ethnic Affairs Council been involved in developing this racism statement at all?
Through the Mayor, I'll throw it to Mr Cooper.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, I can confirm no, it wasn't. We've used the Human Rights Commission's anti-racism statement as the basis for what we're recommending for council. And I should also point out that it's not just focused on the Indigenous community, it is suitable for, the wording there is really covering the multicultural nature of the community of the City of Burnside.
That's what I understood in the committee, that it was a general purpose across the board, focus on the stance in relation to racism on
That's
behalf
correct.
of the council.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, either of those elected members who were also on that meeting, on that committee. Councillor Zing, you wish to speak?
Just a quick question. For 17, it says this includes funding to establish the Ghana Advisory Group. I just wondered what the difference was between a Ghana Advisory Group and a RAP working group. Like, what objectives they're different trying to achieve?
I'll let Mr Cooper answer that one.
Through the chair. Sorry, that was loud. At point 54 in the report explains that, I can read it out, the Ghana Advisory Group will be separate and independent from the Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group. The Ghana Advisory Group will be a hands-on technical advisory group that can support the operational needs of council. They will be a group where council can seek advice or expertise regarding Ghana culture and land. Point 55, in contrast, the Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group focuses on the RAP's development, management and progress reporting. The important role of the Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group is strategic, focusing on the governance associated with reconciliation action plans.
Can I just ask, in addition to that, Ms Patelli, that you might like to suggest ways that the Ghana group that has already been working with us or with the council have already contributed in some ways? Might help those who have not been on council long to understand that we were working with the Ghana Cultural Group in order to develop the Kensington Wama, for example, and the McGill Village. So you please expand on that if you can, or someone else can.
Through the chair, the group's mainly assisted us with the major projects that you've highlighted already. They've also given us, for example, advice on the anti-racism statement. They've provided us general advice on culturally appropriate ways to engage with Ghana people. Without having that technical expertise on staff, they're used as a way to explore and determine appropriate ways for that engagement.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak or ask questions? Then to come to Councillor Hubel to second.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's a lot to think about here. Look, this Reconciliation Action Plan that we have before us for a final review is something that's been in train since February 2020. These things do not happen quickly. And it was actually June 2021 that the first RAP working group met and quite significantly developed the Reflect RAP. Almost exactly what we see before us today was developed in a single day session meeting, and that's almost unheard of. This Reflect RAP was given conditional endorsement by Reconciliation Australia in July 22, another year away. Now, another 12 months has passed and we are all but ready to endorse this. And what I'm sad to hear in this chamber is criticism of an anti-racism statement that is almost verbatim what the Australian Human Rights Commission recommends as a statement made. Yet in this room we have people saying, no, this is too much. And I'm upset that this is where we are, but this is just the evidence we need that an anti-racism statement is necessary. It is not aggressive to be against racism. In fact, trivialising racism, as is being done in this chamber tonight, that is aggressive.
Excuse me.
This statement does not need to be milder. It is not inflammatory. It is critical of one of the most harming human behaviours that is on full display in Australian society still. And we are shying away from doing something about it, and that is disappointing. So I stand with this plan, which has passed through council before, and the relationships action, number 4, promoting positive racial relations, the anti-racism statement was in there. It sat there. I certainly hope we can endorse this and move forward in this journey which we so drastically need.
I believe there's no one else here on the screen, so I'm now going to move back to Councillor Hallett.
Thank you, Mayor. In summing up, I think some of the points that were made is that this is something separate. It doesn't fit here, and if you had read the Reflect Action Plan, you'd see that it does fit here. It is relevant, and as for there aren't examples of other councils, well, I found plenty, and I'm happy to actually provide you with the names of them. As a matter of fact, I even distributed some brochures from Geelong to other councillors that had an anti-racism statement and a booklet. It reflects the Human Rights Council statement, and 42% of our population was born overseas, and I can't believe that it seems to me that some of the elected members around this table don't seem to think that racism is real in our community. Just stop in the park and have a talk with somebody that's from a different culture. They'll tell you every second day they face racism. They're told to go back to where they came from. I've got a Ukrainian refugee living with me. Now, she's white, looks very European. She gets told to go home to where she came from because she doesn't speak English very well. Now, a lot of this happens when they're catching public transport. You just talk to your acquaintances about what actually is going on in our community. We need to be leading from the front foot. The other thing that, if you do read the Inside Local Government, there have been articles, not just on reconciliation, but on The Voice, on anti-racism statements that council's making. And so I think that really it's beholds you to, follow through now. And it's not just about being pretty paintings and naming things after Aboriginal names. We have to get real. We've got to own it, and we have to move forward so that we'll have a better community and a stronger community for it. I urge you to vote for the motion as it stands.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? I have the be supporting the motion as it stands. I feel very, very strongly about the position that this council should be making in relation to racist attitudes and racist taunts, and I certainly have encountered many, even with my change of name, and I couldn't be more Australian than I am. So I am certainly going to support this.
And I'll call a division, Your Worship.
And a division has been called. Thank you. Those in favour? No, it's not too late. Those who are in favour, please stand. Do I have to stand too? I can't remember. Councillor Cornish, Hallett, Hubel, Jennings, Zing and Monso. Those against? Harvey, sorry, I have to still remain standing. Harvey, Turnbull, Jones, Wilkins and Davey. Now we'll move on to the Policy Review Community Engagement and Consultation Report. You don't, it doesn't matter who pulled it. Whoever wishes to move it can move it now. Councillor Davey. You have it.
I have an alternative motion. Thank you. I'll read it through. The Council endorses the proposed community engagement and consultation policy for the purposes of community consultation, subject to the following amendments in line with Council Resolution C14-223 13356 and to ensure accountability. 1. The inclusion of the Employee Conduct Protocol in the related policies section. The addition of the following words in our approach section of the policy. The commitment of the City of Burnside to the transparency of decision making, along with informing and involving the community in key decisions affecting a local area and also more widely. The commitment to open, transparent, responsive and accountable government. The addition of the following wording in the policy section. Council members are consulted before engagement processes are conducted via mechanisms such as by email, the council member portal, information documents, weekly reporting meetings with the administration staff and CEO monthly reports. And notes that a report inclusive of the community consultation results and the draft community engagement and consultation policy is to be presented to Council for policy adoption in October 2023. Thank you. And I thank Matt Spearman for his help in working through an acceptable amended motion. This issue was raised back in February as there were some issues associated with the consultation process, and particularly that we wanted to ensure transparency, we wanted to ensure community involvement, and we also wanted to ensure that council members are advised on specific changes to operational activities and services within their particular wards. The information that's provided to us is we have lots of info docs and emails, but we also need to be advised and be worked with when changes are being made to our areas. But I think there's been a lot of work done on this policy to develop it to this stage. It's now ready to go out for community consultation, and we will then see a report back in October with the results of the consultation, and we'll be able to consider it then. I'm not sure that we have got an engagement framework on page 95. I'm a bit concerned that that could be 95 and 96. Hopefully that could be a little bit simplified, but it'll be interesting to see what the community think. I think it's a little bit complicated for our community. And I just think that, yes, I think it's quite intense, but hopefully our community will have their say and be able to give us the feedback for us to consider in October. Thank you.
Councillor Zing, you wish to second it?
I wish to second it. I reserve my right.
Do you wish to speak now or hold? All right, Councillor Harvey.
I have a variation, if I may, please. An addition of CMs are consulted with on proposed changes to services and issues within their wards.
We just see that as a variation, so if you are happy to accept that, both you and Councillor Zing, you okay with that? All right, so it doesn't need to be amendment, it'll just be an alter, okay. Councillor Harvey, can you just turn your microphone off, please? Right. Somebody's phone's ringing. You were asked to turn it off prior to the meeting. Okay. I haven't anyone on the screen. Does anyone wish to speak? Do you wish to speak on that, Councillor Harvey? On your alteration? Okay. Councillor Wilkins.
Yes, I do wish to make a comment. Thank you for adding that because I was on the same wavelength, 1.4. Because on 105, my comment is number 2 in the list, feedback received, because I did actually bring up the words elected members, which is what we were using at the time, because has been my beef all along. We find out by reading the focus. At that time, I was the resident, newly on council again. That's how I found out what was happening in my ward at that time. So yes, I do agree with that. It is a good thing to advise us what is actually happening within our own wards. So I do support this. I'll just leave it at that.
Councillor Cornish.
With 1.4, can I get the administration's ideas of what they actually consider that is? The reason I ask is Councillor Davies asked these lovely questions about the number of telephone calls and the number of emails that they receive for customer requests. And, you know, we're looking in the order of 13 to 14,000 by email or written requests and, 36,000 requests via phone. Does that mean that we're going to get a copy of every single one of those within our wards? Like, I'm sorry, I just do not have the time to manage that number of, like, petty little complaints that a branch has fallen and stuff like that. So what's your interpretation of an issue within the ward?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. my read, and I could be wrong, is I think this is just trying to codify what we already do to a certain extent, because I'm pretty confident we do communicate with ward councillors on issues. Where there is an issue, the way I'm interpreting it, it's not perhaps the day-to-day issues that come through from those 30-odd thousand phone calls that come into the counter. To my knowledge, it'd be up to the relevant officers just to use their discretion to understand where an issue could be relevant and needs reporting. Similar to some of the things at a higher level that I do, where I go, I'm going to send a heads-up email because I think it'd be good for the elected members to be aware. Maybe if I can just clarify with Councillor Harvey whether I'm on the money there. Is that what you're expecting? Yeah, thank you.
Would it help to add the word relevant in front of issues?
Sorry.
Second question.
Yeah, same question or follow-up question.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned, given recent feedback we've received from other members of the community that have gone and pulled our strategic plan verbatim and said that this is what we should be doing.
Yes.
If we're not clear on what our intentions are in the actual documents of what we should be doing, in which case, if someone did report a branch had fallen down on a footpath, why weren't we told about it? We'd reported it. I'm just, you know, I know that's a really thingy. I'm just concerned that, you know, our words get used against us quite frequently from our strategic documents if we're not very clear.
That's why I suggested the word relevant, because that separates every single issue from the issues that are important. I don't want to use the word important because there's a judgmental thing there. And then maybe there is with relevant as well, but I'd just ask you to consider it, move as a seconder of the motion, since it's been absorbed into your motion.
I was going to answer that in my summing up.
So you don't want to add the word relevant before issues?
Because I think it's not, with respect to Councillor Cornish, it's where we're having changes made in our ward, or with things like the neighbourhood project that's coming up, where a lot of things have been identified, but that might be appearing in our ward and we're not told about them or informed about them or consulted about them. It's not about daily administrative issues. That's not my intention.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak then? All right, then I shall go back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you all for your input. As I said, I actually have a question before I summarise. How can these additions be included in the document? Will they be added to the policy document before it goes out in draft form for community consultation?
Through Madam Mayor, happy to confirm that, whatever is resolved this evening will become the draft document that goes out.
Thank you. And accompanied by some wording that this is as a result of council resolution and the reference to the resolution which started this process off.
Certainly, there will be a little intro blurb. I'm sure we can include some words to support that.
Unfortunately, the resolution wasn't included in our in the policy, but there is one in the CEO's report, and I'll actually read it out, which talks about the resolution that we moved, which I referred to before, in February, which is in our anyway, thank you very much for your input and comments. It is crucial that when changes are made to our, if in our major parks we're getting changes made, we've got new paths going in or new pieces of equipment, it's really crucial that we know about them before they go, because we're the ones who are asked the questions and asked what's going on. It's not about major day-to-day administrative things. The resolution of council, just as a reminder, that as a matter of priority, reviews and updates the Burnside Community Engagement Policy of April 2020. That the policy review includes commitment of City Burnside to transparency of decision-making, informing and involving the community in key decisions affecting a local area and also more widely, commitment to open, transparent, responsive and accountable government, the mechanisms for genuine consultation and engagement with council members on any proposed changes to policy, operational activity, services and activities in their ward. The methods to be used to encourage and seek contributions from ratepayers who may be impacted by decisions of council, naming the policy the Community Engagement and Consultation Policy, that a new draft policy be circulated to council members before circulation to the community in accordance with section 50 of the Local Government Act and for final consideration by council, and that in the interim, while this review proceeds, council members are consulted with and involved in any changes to the services, operations, equipment and conditions proposed in their wards. So it's like in previous days, we were consulted and involved in matters in our wards. We get our general info docs and information about general council activities, the specific ones, or more, less specific, but when they talk about curbing in certain areas and road replacement in other areas. But we used to get actually be contacted and told you're having a piece of equipment upgraded in this playground, or there's major tree audits going on in this park, and it's so we're involved and we know what's happening. That hasn't been happening lately, so that's the reason for this explicit inclusion in here, which council agreed to. So hopefully you'll support this and we can get this underway and hear back in October from what our community thinks.
Those in favour? Against? Carried. Mayor's activity report. Yes, Councillor Turnbull.
I just had a question, if you don't mind. In your Mayor's activity report, number 3 and number 10 attended a concert at the Regal Theatre for Beatles show. Do you give a welcome speech as the Mayor? Is that part of the Mayor's
No, but
duties?
the recognition is always provided to the Mayor at those concerts. On the first occasion, I actually went along to speak specifically to the promoter after the show, because it was her last show that she was running at the Regal, and I wanted to I pay for my own tickets, by the way, and I wanted to make sure that the council recognised the significant contribution that she has had over the last 2.5 years of bringing shows to the Regal and putting a lot of bums on seats. And for the second event, there was a speech made by the promoter, who particularly was very thankful and wanted to acknowledge the City of Burnside in the support that they've received, since they've been also working at that venue, and hence I included those both in that report, because I was mentioned on both occasions. I did not speak. I don't have to speak at every event that I go to, but I do write in my report all the events that I do attend, and I'm sure that you could have asked that question without holding up everybody here at council prior to the meeting, if that clarifies it. Davey?
Thank you. Yes, I just had a couple of queries. There was a local government mayors and CEOs forum on the 7th of July. Do we have a report or any outcomes of that meeting?
It was a mayors and CEOs one-day workshop. We did not attend the evening before nor stay the night at the event, as many councils did from across the state. We attended the workshop on that day. I certainly could write you up a brief scenario activity report, but it was sessions where CEOs, first of all, the first part of the day was all about the new behavioural standards. So it was a very, very clear workshop to help all of the mayors present and the CEOs to understand the new behavioural standards and what was expected of them in their roles. And the second part of the day was actually about how better CEOs could communicate with each other, and so it was very much focused on communication between CEOs and mayors under the mayors, particularly the mayors' new roles that are now a part of the Local Government Act. If you want me to write something up, I certainly could, but that really summarises what the day was. It was very, very much an interaction. Second half of the day was all interaction. First half of the day was listening and learning more about how to apply the behavioural standards.
And my next question is about a breakfast with ERA mayors on July the 14th. So was that a formal meeting? And I just wondered what the ERA mayors...
Okay, well, let me explain. When I first became mayor nearly 5 years ago, I was invited to attend the ERA Mayor's Breakfast by David, Mayor Prospect. Yes, they had actually been operating that for a number of years, ever since ERA, I believe, has started. And so it's a formalised, well, it does not have an agenda, but it is at a meeting where the 6 mayors that form part of the ERA councils discuss items or issues of similar concern over breakfast. We take it in terms of paying. I pay for the mayor's breakfast out of my pocket. The council does not pay for that, and I do not seek reimbursement of that for that breakfast. So that's the way it operates, and we talk about common things that relate to specifically to ERA activities, and some of those things actually end up becoming agenda items at formalised ERA meetings at future dates. So that's, there are 6 mayors involved.
And I had a third question.
Yes.
A briefing on Adelaide's bid for recognition for its contribution to global climate science. What were the outcomes of that?
It was actually all about a citizen science project. It was actually run by a gentleman who has been for the last 20 years. He and a team of volunteers have been upgrading data, all of Charles Todd's data on weather forecasts and weather determining factors or data for the whole of Australia. And so what was shared at that meeting was the very first synoptic charts were actually made by Charles Todd, who is the same person who put in the Overland Telegraph. And so when I went along to that meeting, I thought it was more about a claim to climate. What they were talking about was a group of meteorologists talking about the history of synoptic charts and weather forecasting and weather collecting of data over since 1860 something or other. So it was actually turned out to be a history meeting, which was incredibly interesting and the fact that Charles Todd, because of the telegraph stations that had been installed right across the country, they were the places where the weather was actually, data was collected. And from that data, Charles Todd created the first synoptic charts for the whole of Australia and New Zealand. So it was really, when we're talking about the 1860s, that was incredibly, and these people, a group of volunteers, have taken all of his charts, all of his data, all hand ink written, 20,000 pages, and have actually converted that all to data that is now compiled within the Weather Bureau and within the historic records for South Australia. So incredible feat that's been done by volunteers. Right, any other questions? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Turnbull, you did move it. Sorry, I haven't got anything on the screen. Oh, so it's not. You're seconding? Oh, sorry, it's there, yeah. Okay, I've answered all the questions. You're seconding, Councillor Wilkins? Right, thank you. Then I'll move the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Chief Executive's report. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I move in accordance with the recommendation, and I just had a couple of queries, if I may. Paragraph 14, we had procurement dispensation approved for the Home Support Services Panel. which oversees contracts to the value of $347,000. I had no idea we had a home support services panel. Could we please be informed what it is and who's on it? Thank you. And I then have another couple of questions.
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr Cooper.
Through the Mayor, this is a procurement panel which is made up of a number of suppliers that our home support services contract to provide our services under the CHISP agreement.
Councillor Harvey. Are you seconding?
Yes.
Right, thank you. And you have a question or you wish to speak? Right, go ahead. Councillor Davey, can you just turn your microphone off, please?
Thank you. It's in relation to point 37. I'm just wondering if that is a typo, as project planning is also underway for community consultation on a proposed 40-kilometre-hour speed limit area in Kensington Gardens and McGill per council resolution on 29 December. Is this correct?
Through Madam Mayor, yes, it is a typo. Must apologise. That should say 9th of May from that resolution number. I think that's correct. So, humble apologies for that mistake. We'll correct that.
So, I'm sorry, it should say?
It should say 9th of May.
That's the resolution.
29th.
No, 9th of May. 9th of May.
Resolution occurred.
No, I'm referring to the 29th of December for consultation.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, my mistake, Madam Mayor. I misunderstood. I'll just get clarification from Mr Cant on this one. I would suggest that the 29th of December is wrong.
That's wrong. We are aiming, I believe it was September or October we were aiming for.
Yeah. October, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, 29 October?
No, we're not specifying a date. We're just aiming for October at this stage.
October. Thank you. Thank you, CEO.
Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Thank you, yes. Going back to the itemised monthly activity on page 116, at 2116 there's a point about met with the Consul General of China and head of the bilateral affairs in the Chinese Consulate General. And I just wondered who initiated this meeting, what the purpose of it was, and are there protocols that are involved when we meet with consuls and consul generals? Thanks.
Yeah, I might refer that to Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I'll answer that one. I met the Consulate General at the Overseas Chinese Association, and when I met her on that day, we're all wearing masks, etc., for COVID, and she actually said that she would like to come and meet with the CEO and myself at some point in time. So she initiated that, and I said, yeah, that would be lovely to meet you. So she initiated that into a conversation with us, and it was just came to my parlour, had a general conversation about Chinese people living in Burnside and any ways that they could work together and to ensure the friendly and opportunities, really. So it was purely social. Yeah. And we were together for an hour, just under an hour. Councillor Davey, you have another question?
Yes, I have got two more. Again on page 116, at paragraph 23, the council dashboard. I understand that this is taking a while to develop and refine. Why can't we still have this information just presented to us in just ordinary text? while we're waiting for this to be finalised, please. And then I've got a question about the Burnside Hospital.
Yeah, certainly. Through Madam Mayor, and I do apologise that it hasn't come here sooner. Having said that, I am pleased to report that we have finalised the dashboard now, and it will appear on the next report. Oh, sorry, I'm just getting a little note from Matt. Let me just have a quick look at that. I might just get Mr. Spearman to clarify if he's got a comment to add.
Through the Mayor, thank you for the question. It's also subject to the adoption of the CEO KPI, so we have it ready to go, but if there's changes to the CEO KPIs, we're going to have to change that again, and I didn't want to have to do rework if that's going to change, because then it's more work for the IT team. Correct.
Well, through Madam Mayor, Council will have the opportunity this evening to consider my KPIs. So it's on the next agenda coming up. So.
We still have the information, just come to us in ordinary text. It's the information I'm worried about, if we're not getting updated on.
Yep. I'm happy to make a commitment that I'll give you a report next month, regardless of the outcome of my CEO KPIs.
Councillor Hallett.
I've got a comment/question.
Ask the question, otherwise you are actually debating. So I suggest you ask the question specifically first.
Okay, the question is, in relation to page 119, Burnside War Memorial Hospital, why does it have a green dot and not an orange dot? I would have thought it was definitely an orange.
So through Madam Mayor, I'm in the process of putting together the report that I promised Council that they were going to get. But what I can share with you is that there are no issues with the Burnside War Memorial Hospital. There are none. The legal advice is quite clear that they haven't circumvented any of the terms of reference. And so in that vein, and this is based on legal advice, this isn't my opinion, it's based on legal advice, that is why it's green, because there are no issues. Now, what the lawyers have recommended, and I agree with this recommendation, that we should specifically request of the board a full briefing and a full report to talk through the logic and why they've taken the step and all the associated parts of that equation. But legally, and in terms of our risk, there are no issues.
Hence green.
Yeah, hence green. Yes, that's why.
Councillor Davey, you have another question?
Thank you. Yes, along those lines, thank you for your question, Councillor Hallett. My concern is that there's all the changes, and I'm pleased there aren't any legal issues and everything's kosher. But one of the big omissions has been that we haven't received our update on the conduct and management of the hospital for 2022. And I hope that's what's coming to us from the Burnside Hospital Board, because they've had a new CEO who it would seem didn't know about this charter and the responsibilities they had. I don't recall seeing, at least for the last 12 months, a report on how things are going from the board.
So through Madam Mayor, you'll note in attachment C to this agenda, there's the annual review, 21-22, and that's the same document that the hospital...
Sorry, it's not.
That's the same document that has been provided to us in previous years by the previous CEO. Yeah. And you'll also note that I've also provided you the financial statements that have now been provided for the last financial year as well. So I went back on the records and looked at what had been provided, and that's the level of detail that had been provided. Now, obviously, we have the ability to ask for specific reports if we so choose, but I was simply seeking to provide the similar information that we received in the past.
Thank you. And so when are we having a briefing from the board chair and the CEO?
I'm still confirming the dates. I'll clarify, but it's around near the end of August, I believe. Okay. But I'll clarify that.
Thank you.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. On similar lines, I'm sorry, Mr. CEO. Just wondering whether or not we could get a copy of the actual deed of trust circulated to elected members so we can actually understand whether or not the City of Burnside was gifted that land to run a hospital or to provide a hospital, in which case we don't have to run it. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, certainly happy to provide that advice. I think it's also worth clarifying that I also sought legal advice on whether the council is the principal member. I think that was the language that I heard thrown around.
We're the only member.
That language isn't correct in that, in terms of the legalese, there's a body corporate, which is the Burnside Hospital, and they run the hospital. Council is the landlord. We own.
That's our only relationship.
Yeah, we own the land. There are two nuances in the terms of reference. One is that based on the recommendation of the board, we appoint the board members, but the lawyers have clarified that we are the landlord. We are not the principal or the sole member.
I think we should refrain from asking any further questions at this point about that until we've actually got a copy of that report. I'm not criticising you, Councillor Cornish, but I think we can, otherwise we're only surmising, and I think it's appropriate we wait till we've actually got that document and we've had a chance to read it, and then obviously if the people have got more questions at that point in time they can be asked, and particularly if there's a workshop being established as well, then further questions can be asked. Now, I don't have anyone else left on the screen, so Councillor Davey, are you happy for me to, I don't know if I got it, I can't remember now if I got a seconder for that motion. I do, it's on there. Yes, Councillor Harvey it was. Okay, so Councillor Davey, you wish to sum up? I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the CEO's report? Against? Carried. I think it's 11 point. Now move to 13.2. Councillor Davey, your condolence motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Unhappily, we missed this opportunity last meeting because we weren't able to have a meeting. I wish to move that Council notes with sadness the passing of Mrs. Bardi Penfold Simpson, OAM, on the 1st of July 2023. Bardi Simpson was a very significant, one of our pioneering families. She was a fifth-generation member of the Penfolds family, was a noted resident and philanthropist, and her particular focus was the work she did tirelessly as a founder member of the Burnside Hospital Foundation from its inception in 1998 to raise millions in support of services for the War Memorial Hospital. She was a wonderful lady, and her memorial service will be held at the Regal Theatre, which she loved, on the 6th of August. So please join me in noting her passing. Thank you.
Councillor Zing, you're seconding that motion?
Happy to second, Mayor.
Is there anyone who wishes to make any comment? Councillor Wilkins?
I would just concur with all that Councillor Davey has said in noting Mrs. Simpson's considerable contribution to the Burnside War Memorial Hospital and other causes in our local community. Vale Bardi.
Thank you. I'll just reiterate the comments that have been made already. A very highly respected person within our community. So if there's anyone else who wishes to speak, I will get Councillor Davey to Put the motion? Okay. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now the one is Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. My motion is that Council, 1, under the Behavioural Management Framework for Council Members and Section 262B of the Local Government Act 1999, develops a City of Burnside behavioural management policy. 2, in the interim and until a City of Burnside behavioural management policy is adopted, 2.1, notes that any complaint received under the behavioural standards for council members must be received by the CEO or delegate and allocated to the person responsible for managing the complaint, who may refer the complaint to the Behavioural Standards Panel if required for determination in the interests of openness and transparency. 2.2, where a council member is found not to have breached the behavioural standards for council members and the complaint has progressed to investigation by a third party, which may include legal firms, the Behavioural Standards Panel or the Ombudsman, the council member is entitled to a 100% reimbursement of their legal expenses to defend themselves. 2.3 notes that should a complaint progress to formal consideration, the person responsible for managing the complaint will advise both the complainant and the person who is the subject of the complaint that they are able to have a support person accompany them during discussions relating to the complaint. 3, within the draft behavioural management policy for council's consideration, clauses be included that provide as follows. 3.1, to minimise the incidence of trivial, frivolous or vexatious complaints, the complainant's identity be provided to the person complained about unless there is a compelling and evidenced legal reason to keep the complainant's identity confidential. 3.2, subject to the nature of the allegations and information received, complainants are advised the council may be unable to progress an anonymous complaint under the policy if it is unable to contact the complainant. 3.3, that should a complainant progress to formal consideration, the person responsible for managing the complaint will advise both the complainant and the person who is the subject of the complaint that they are able to have a support person accompany them during discussions relating to the complaint. 3.4, where a council member is found not to have breached the behavioural standards for council members and the complaint has progressed to investigation by a third party, which may include legal firms, the Behavioural Standards Panel or the Ombudsman, the council member is entitled to a 100% reimbursement of their legal expenses to defend themselves. 4, circulates a draft behavioural management policy to council members for consideration and comment and returns the behavioural management policy to council for adoption as soon as possible. It is timely after recent events of a code of conduct against Councillor Davey that all councillors support changes with your inclusions to the new City of Burnside behavioural management policy. Other councils have adopted their own policy in line with the LGA, and it is now time for us to do the same. The purpose of this motion is intended to respectfully and constructively gain your support and further protect all City of Burnside councillors from frivolous, vexatious and malicious complaints resulting in legal action, not to change the BMP, but to add to it, to put our own interpretation into the policy. We know the recent code of conduct costs ratepayers up to $20,000 in legal fees. We have to stop involving lawyers in frivolous complaints. When we all campaigned last year to support and serve our community in good faith, spiteful, unfair and bullying complaints by anonymous complainants towards any of us, I am sure, was not foremost in any of our thoughts. It certainly wasn't in mine. If they were, I am sure none of us would have stood for election. I certainly wouldn't have. Why would any of us want our reputation dragged through the legal system and the undue stress, malicious accusations and large legal costs? This wasn't what we all signed up for. It wasn't what I signed up for. The identity of a complainant cannot be protected unless there is compelling legal reasons or evidence to support this. In the LGA existing behavioural management policy, it states where required, council may engage the assistance of skilled advisors and support persons in the assessment, investigation and resolution of complaints, and avoid adopting an unreasonably legalistic approach. This must be supported and tied down. No councillor should feel threatened or attacked from malicious, frivolous, vexatious and anonymous complaints resulting in immediate escalation to legal costs. Every councillor in the City of Burnside deserves the right to go about their work as a dedicated councillor in a professional and protected manner as anyone in any workforce does, without the fear of their reputation being compromised, fear of being bullied and facing an unnecessary escalation to expensive legal costs. I would like to thank administration who have worked very hard in helping me with this motion and seeking clarification to ensure this motion would not contravene legislative requirements. Thank you, Matt Spearman, and our CEO. I hope you will support this for the very reasons I have outlined in this motion. Thank you.
I seek a second. Councillor Turnbull. All right, thank you. Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Hubel.
I have a question, Your Worship, or through you, from the administration. And this is on the topic of, this question is about the anonymity. Do complainants have a legislated right to anonymity to any degree?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I might just seek clarification. Thanks, Mr. Spearman.
Through the Mayor, it depends on the individual. There could be different legislation, such as the Public Interest Disclosure Act, where, for example, an employee might be protected under that act. There'd be other legislation as well, such as protected persons or minors.
Councillor Day.
Thank you, Mayor. I support this motion, certainly for obvious reasons. We don't need any more frivolous, vexatious and or malicious codes of conduct complaints in Burnside. And I think we really have to start to be mature adults and distinguish between a dispute and a complaint. If we have a disagreement or a difference of opinion with one of our colleagues, we need to sort it out amongst ourselves. We're all adults elected by our community for our standing in the community. There are some pretty good behavioural management policies that have been already developed, so the work's essentially been done for us. We really need to only cut and paste. Two I've found that are excellent. The best one is the behavioural management that the City of Marion has already produced, and it's 15 pages, but it's very clear, lucid, non-legalistic policy. And the other one that has been developed is the City of Charles Sturt Behavioural Management Framework, or Behaviour Management Policy, which sits within the legislative framework. And the only difference with that is it's got the flow charts that everybody loves so much. It's got 2 pages of those. So they're two that certainly could be started with. We really do have to be mature and work things out for ourselves, not put in these vexatious and totally unnecessary and costly codes of conduct complaints. So hopefully you'll support this and we can have a draft. We have to have it completed by November, I believe. I think we need a comprehensive one for all of the history that we've got in Burnside. I don't think it's just having the legislative form or format that is in the Gazette. I think we actually need to develop it and make some investment in it. And I want us to get away from using lawyers and, where at all possible, use the local government panels where we have any need for management of disputes, or heaven forbid that they escalate to codes of conduct. There's a whole lot of other options. We need to stay away from these really expensive, costly lawyers. Thank you.
Councillor Corn.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I will be supporting the motion as it stands, but I really need to clarify some items. There is no such thing as a code of conduct complaint anymore. None. It's a behavioural standard or behavioural complaint from now on. Councillor David, the City of Marion and City of Charles Sturt policies that you held up there, verbatim what our current policy is, because they've copied and pasted it from the LGA standard. I've gone and had them on screen by screen. It's verbatim, word for word, what this city currently has. We currently have the ability to work things out before it even gets to a complaint stage. I do agree. I implore you to follow that. Like, we've got everything in there. We just, I'm approving this motion because I think that what Councillor Harvey has gone to do is gone and modify our specific policy, or asking for some modifications for a specific policy for the City of Burnside, which we can do, and that's regarding the legal fees if it gets there, which I don't think we're going to see it in the next 4 years. I really don't, under this new policy, which we currently have. It was approved by the CEO while we were in caretaker, and we got an email of it on the 17th of November to say this is our new policy and these are our new standards that we actually abide by. You might not remember it because it was actually sent to your electorate email address and not your council one, because we weren't properly sworn in at that stage. So we abide by that current policy and the standards. They're two separate things, but we abide by them at the moment. I do think it's a really good motion. We need to actually have our own. We've got one up at the moment, but it's just a carbon copy of what everyone else is, just not with our logo basically on every page. It's just on the front page. But I do think that we need to have a look at that and go through the policy procedure of doing that. I like the CEO's comment potentially about, rather than 100%, maybe it's 100% up to a limit. I don't know if $2,000 is the appropriate amount that the CEO has suggested in his commentary, but certainly I think that might be something to look at. But it's nowhere near going to go near it. Going through this process and the policy, there aren't going to be as many that unfortunately Councillor Davey had to go through under the old policy and the old regime from the last minister in the last government. So that is a bygone, and code of conducts are gone for good. So it's only about behavioural management, which can be done at a much more touchlier spot rather than a legalese space. So please support the motion. I think it's a good thing that we actually get our own badging over it, and we look at modifying it where we can to suit the City of Burnside. So I do support that, but I just sort of make it very clear where we currently stand.
Councillor Jones.
Can I ask a question, please? Because I think it seems to me there's some confusion here. That the behavioural standards policy is different from the behavioural management policy. We already have a behavioural standards policy. Having a behavioural management policy is optional under the Act, and that's what we voted in a contested vote to have. Is that correct?
Through the Mayor, I might get Mr Spearman just to clarify that for us.
Through the Mayor, there's the legislated behavioural standards which are in the Act. our our model behavioral policy that's being considered at the moment, that is the mechanism or the framework around it, around those behaviors. And then there's third, a behavior support policy, which is what you guys decide, as a council, decide would be your values and your behaviors. So it's in addition to what's already in the Act.
What is the behavioural management framework? Is that the legislated one that we already have? It's not the behavioural support policy, this is the third thing.
So the behavioural policy that is being considered here, the management behavioural policy, that is your framework. So that's what we've been given by the LGA. So that is the framework, as opposed to behavioural standards are the behaviours itself that are listed in the Act.
Can I ask a question, please? Councillor Cornish is quite reassuring that legal fees, may not be included at all. And yes, the issue of Councillor Davey was under the old Act, which required a certain process to happen. This new process does provide more flexibility. But is it possible, this is my question, is it possible that the involvement of a lawyer could actually make it possible for someone to go ahead and spend a large amount of money, I'm talking $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, on defending themselves? Or is that not a possibility? And therefore, if we go for 100% reimbursement, then how are we going to report that, or how are we going to be accountable to our community for that? So there's two questions there, really.
Through Madam Mayor, Councillor Davies' previous statement was absolutely correct. The new process is designed to not be legalese.
Yes.
It's just designed to operate without lawyers. I might just get Mr Spearman just to share with us, is there an opportunity for people to engage lawyers if they choose to? Thank you.
That could be.
Yeah, through the mayor, in theory, if somebody could use a support person and choose to make that be their lawyer when it gets to that discussion.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, you're correct. That's why I've made my comment that I would recommend council put a cap on this. I'm not suggesting it's 2, that's just what was in the previous policy. But my recommendation to council would be to perhaps pick an upper limit that you would be comfortable with, to at least put some parameters around that reimbursement. That's my only advice to you.
Councillor Cornish?
Thank you, Worship. Just a question regarding that. We've actually, the motion says that it's when the investigation is done by a third party, right? So we've got legal firms, behavioural standards panel, or the ombudsman. And from my reading and looking at the workflow, it only gets to those 3 after multiple times that this council has had to manage behavioural issues with that singular person.
Not necessarily multiple. It can go straight to the panel if it's really serious.
Oh, absolutely. Well, ideally you'd probably send it to a police if it's that serious, because it's not actually a behavioural issue, it's something a bit worse. But from my own, a bit better, it's a lot worse. It's a bit worse. Yes, no, but from my understanding, you really are not supposed to refer it to the behavioural standards panel unless it's multiple times and it's quite egregious. And ideally, I would have liked to have delayed this a little longer, but we've got the ability to amend it. It's our policy at a later stage, because I'd like to see what actually comes out of the behavioural standards policy and whether or not it's costing people money, or they're sending lawyers up for them, etc., etc. I know there have been a few that have gone through it to date, but there haven't been a lot. But yes, I'll wait for a comment.
There are quite a lot backed up, because we did actually hear from, on the day at the Barossa, we did actually hear from one of the panel who talked about where things were at the moment. Obviously no personal issues, but did talk about the fact that there were 3 lawyers, one a human rights lawyer, who was the one who came and spoke to us, who talked about what their role was and that they are not interested in dealing with anything unless it's super serious or the council has already tried to deal with it and haven't been able to resolve it.
Through Madam Mayor, just a thought on the perhaps putting some parameters around the reimbursement. Considering that what's been proposed here this evening is this is an interim step, and very shortly council will have a draft before them. I'm reasonably happy that it's not paramount that council sets that this evening, bearing in mind that, heaven forbid, hopefully we have nothing between now and then. And then that would give council time, once they've seen the draft policy, to actually consider my advice there. So just for your edification, I'm comfortable in that light.
Councillor Jones?
Sorry, another question. I'm still confused. So am I right in thinking that we currently have a behavioural management policy, and I therefore don't understand how 2 works, because how can you say this takes effect until we have a policy in place when we have a policy in place?
I'll allow Mr. Spearman to have the first crack at this one. Thank you.
Through the Mayor, there is a requirement under the Act that it has to be, we have the LGA one that's in place as an interim measure. And under the Act, we do have to, regardless of anything, consider that and revise it and adopt our own before November.
So that's what we're doing.
No. Yeah, that's right. So we're currently in the, as Mr. Spearman said, we're currently in this limbo where we've got the LGA draft one in place, but we still need to. Now, it might be the council could, for example, say we resolve we're going to stick with what the LGA have said, or as is proposed here, we'll actually adopt the Burnside version of that. But the legislation is very clear about that November deadline.
Councillor Dave?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. Thank you for clarifying that matter as you just did, because that was my next question. Thanks, CEO. The other is it possible for us to invite the panel to come and give us an info session? Because I recall we had the Ombudsman came out and visited us to tell us all about his role and the structures. ICAC, I beg your pardon, yes, thank you. And I think we did have the Ombudsman another time, but the ICAC Commissioner, thank you, I stand corrected, was very keen to come and educate us. Why would not the panel be able to do the same?
Through Madam Mayor, I'm certainly happy to make the request. That's not an issue. I'm just conscious, and from what the Mayor and I heard, this isn't their day job, and they have full-time positions. This is in addition to their full-time roles, and from what I gathered, they're extremely time poor. So we'll make the request, that's okay, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do push back a little bit on that.
You could imagine them being requested by 68 councils around the state, and well, I think as they made it quite clear to us, they're very busy in their day jobs. They do this on top of as appointed by the government to do this job, and it's on top of their normal working lives.
I think the comment was a little bit sad, Madam Mayor, because their workload from the number of complaints is far greater than anyone had ever anticipated.
Hopefully none from this council.
Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Worship. Another question, and I really am labouring over points 2 and 3, so please forgive me on querying these. With regards to the reimbursement, so 2.2 and 3.4, and this is a question, Your Worship, through you to the administration and guidance on how that would be, this motion would be interpreted by you. The wording is found not to have breached, that phrase. Is the administration's understanding that this finding, this said finding, is a finding by a third party who has been involved, or is this finding made by council after they've considered the third party advice?
Through Madam Mayor, it would have to rely on the final resolution of council, is the way I would be interpreting that.
Councillor Jones.
Can I ask you another question? But I'm of the view that even guilty people should be defended. Are we allowed to say, do we have to have this thing that it's only if you're cleared that your legal fees can be reimbursed?
Change that while we're developing.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Can you please just restate the question, Councillor?
My view is that guilty people, even if people are found guilty, they're still entitled to be defended. And therefore, are we able to say, well, even if you are found guilty of breaching the behavioural standards, we will still pay your legal fees up to a point? Are we legally allowed to do that? Because otherwise, it's a bit of a lottery. Do I spend $10,000 on a lawyer, and if I do, the chances I get off are higher, but then I still might be found guilty, especially if it's a council decision rather than an external lawyer's decision, and I've just lost $10,000.
We did ask that question of Norman Woodhouse, and their advice was that potentially that could fall into the realms of maladministration, because essentially you're using ratepayer funds at this stage, potentially uncapped, for someone that is found guilty. I don't think that passes the front page test.
Sorry, can I follow on that? If the decision is of council, my mates could let me off, and then my legal fees are paid. Well, that's getting pretty close to maladministration, isn't it?
I know that was a frivolous statement, but we've got, well, no, but we have to pick a line. Now, we either rely on the findings of the legal report, which under the new system we may not get anyway. I think we need to assume that the council will make a sound decision. If you can't assume that, pack up and go home. You have to make that assumption. Otherwise, you're on this dangerous slippery slope.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. Just another question. In relation to third parties, in relation to Councillor Hubel's sort of questioning, my understanding is that council will be compelled to uphold what the third party decision actually is. We've got no say in overturning that decision at all. We are compelled to uphold what the Ombudsman says, what the Behavioural Standards Panel does. We can't change and flip it and say we disagree. We can't do that. So that's why you don't want them to go to those panels.
Councillor Hubel.
More questions? I might try and slip 2 in here. I keep going to the back of the queue. First of all, would removing 2 and 3 of this motion be seen as beyond the reach of an amendment because they represent a stopgap in the meanwhile.
Sorry, can I just confirm, when you say 2 and 3,
No, 2 parts 1 to 3 and 3 parts 1 to 4.
Sorry, say those again, please.
I'm asking
No,
whether
I'm just
it would
asking a
be-
question.
it's a substantial change.
Yep, that's fine.
So
Yeah.
you'd have to
Okay,
bring that back.
I'll speak. After considering the answers to these questions, and Councillor Jones touched on this, I can hypothesise a situation where this council receives legal advice that a certain action should be taken, and it falls to council to decide whether to do that or not. And if making the decision one way or the other, so for example, deciding to do nothing or to give the person being complained about a slap on the wrist, as it were, I think that if council went, you know what, it should be a slap on the wrist, but that's all it should be, that would mean legal expenses wouldn't be reimbursed. But if we did nothing, legal expenses would be reimbursed. That's how I'm reading this. That if it goes to a third party and council makes a decision that there is not a breach, then legal fees are reinstated. But if council says, you know what, just say sorry and we're done, then there is a breach. And I think that puts every member of the chamber in a very precarious position. So I think, I'm very, very open to hearing more reasoning. I just want to communicate this is my reading of the reality we'd be putting ourselves in. And I think that's, I'd love to hear the reasoning against that. I just want to be open with what I'm thinking. So there we are.
Anyone else wish to speak? If no one else wishes to speak, then I think we've got to the stage of going back to the original mover of the motion. Did the seconder speak? Because people keep on withdrawing, withholding, and I didn't write it down.
Turnbull.
Councillor Turnbull, you haven't spoken.
So thank you for bringing this motion to Councillor Harvey and Matt Spearman for helping to get us talking about it, working on it, and I support it. Thank you.
All right, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I really don't think, Councillor Hubel, you understand the basics of this motion. The motion is intended for this never to happen again to any of us, to be put in that position. We had a situation where
Excuse me, but that was a different set of rules. They do not apply now.
I understand. Point of order.
It's not a point of order. I'm correcting you. You are referring to a set of rules that did exist that do no longer exist.
You're not allowing me to finish, Mayor. Where we voted on to reimburse Councillor Davey her full $3,500.
Excuse me, that was supposed to be confidential. You've just broken confidentiality.
Apologies.
Continue. Excuse me, councillor, I am not provoking anybody, I'm stating a fact.
This is an interim motion until each councillor can put their own input and stamp onto this behavioural management policy. So thank you all for your thoughts. It goes without saying, we all fear the consequences of legal expenses being levelled at us with frivolous, trivial, malicious and vexatious complaints. I'd also like to thank Councillor Cornish for his support on this motion and helping me also with this motion. As I said, this situation cannot happen again. I hope you will support this motion for all of us. Thank you.
I put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now, I think that was the last item for the first meeting. So I will close, unless there's urgent or other business.
Yes, I've got a question.
Yes, councillor.
Any other business question without notice, please? I just wondered what's been planned by the City of Burnside for National Tree Day on August the 1st. If there are any events, how have they been advertised? If there are no events, why not? I seem to ask this every year, I'm afraid. I'd like an answer. Thank you.
I did actually mention National Tree Day in my last Burnside highlights and recommend that people do take the opportunity to buy a tree and plant a tree. They are available, of course, through the voucher system in the council.
The City of Burnside handing out trees or going somewhere and making a big song and dance or... Yes, Arbor Day, but it's called National Tree Day now, and the Friday before is for schools. Have we heard anything about that? That's my question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll refer that to Mr Cant.
Through your worship, I'll have to take that on notice and I can provide an email to you tomorrow.
Right, I'll now close the meeting at 9:28 and I suggest we have a 10-minute break and then resume our next meeting. Welcome to the meeting that was scheduled for Tuesday the 11th of July, starting at 7 p.m. We're starting at 9:39 p.m. And I'm going to declare that the opening section is read. It will be recorded in the minutes. I'm not going to go through it all. Therefore, I'm going straight to absences. And at that time, we had a number of apologies. Do I need to read all those out? Record them? Okay, so at that time we had apologies from Councillor Wilkins and Councillor Henschke, and we had leave of absence from Councillor Hubel and Councillor Dawes. I have a declaration of interest for item 7. I declare a general conflict of interest for item number 11.1, Heritage Reference Group Operating Guidelines. Report number 159-23, the nature of my general conflict of interest pursuant to section 74 of the Local Government Act 1999 is that my husband is an office bearer of the Burnside Historical Society, but I will remain in the chamber and vote if necessary. Are there any other conflict of interest?
I was just going to suggest that maybe Councillor Wilkins not be an apology for this meeting.
Why not?
Because she's sitting right there.
Oh, okay, so that doesn't count anymore. Okay, we didn't hold the meeting. Apologies. That's right. Okay.
It's okay.
Right. So Councillor Henschke is still, and Councillor... Sorry, I was copying directly from what I had written down for last week. Okay. 2 weeks ago. Apologies. Right.
Madam Mayor, I just need to declare an interest in item 11.2. I probably should leave the room for that one.
Yes.
And also I'll declare an interest in 11.4 by virtue of the fact that I sit on the owner's executive of Brownhill Keswick Creek, but I will remain in the meeting to answer questions should they arise.
Okay. Thank you. Now, Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I have an interest, but I don't believe I have a conflict in the Heritage Reference Group, and I will participate in the consideration of the item. I'm a member of the reference group, but not remunerated in any way.
Well, I'm a member of that reference group as well, but I was assuming we aren't required to be a conflict of interest on that. I'm getting a shake of the head over there from governance, so we aren't required, Councillor Davey, to make... That's fine. Councillor Wilkins?
I would declare that I'm a member of the Burnside Historical Society. Can I just ask a quick question? Do I have to list all the other organisations heritage-wise that I belong to? No. Only Burnside. Right, thank you. That's what I need to say. I will remain in the room.
We don't have any deputation presentations. Public question time. I will go through the reports and see who wishes to, or if any need to be withdrawn for debate, or we go straight to voting. But the first one, obviously we need... Oh, there's another one, sorry. Oh, the minutes, yes. I have to get confirmation of the minutes. So I need a... Thank you, Councillor Cornish. Second by Councillor Zing. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Done. Now we go to 11.1. We do need to do something with that because there are nominations required. So that one will need to be withdrawn by Councillor Zing. Minutes of the CEO Review Committee. No, you don't have to leave yet. I'm waiting. Councillor Davey wants that to be debated. Era Water Budget Review. Does anyone wish to have that debated, or it wants to go straight to? Sorry. Okay, so it's Cornish. You need to put your, even if you have a question, you need to register, because you can't ask questions without withdrawing it for debate. Okay. Appointment of members to the Brownhill Creek. Happy for someone to move that. Councillor Cornish, you're moving that. We accept that.
Can I withdraw it?
Councillor Jones wishes to withdraw it. Mayor's activity report. Councillor Davey, you wish to withdraw it? We now go back to the heritage guidelines. Councillor Zing, you wish to
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to accept
raise it?
the officer's recommendation. I'm assuming we'll just go through the nomination process as standard guidelines.
Thank you. So I'm seeking, Councillor Cornish, you're seconding the motion as it stands?
I will, I was also going to make a nomination.
Oh, you still happy to second it though?
I think Councillor Zing's...
I was going to make a nomination as well, Mayor. That's
All right, well, hang on a minute.
Call.
Let's,
He's got the call? Oh,
no,
I
no.
do.
Are you, I need a seconder. Are you happy
I'm
to second?
happy to second the
right.
motion.
Now, Councillor Zing, you have a nomination.
Can I nominate Councillor Davey?
Councillor Davey, and you wish have one as well?
Councillor Wilkins, I'd like to nominate.
Now, both of those people will accept those nominations? Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to nominate or be nominated?
I've got Councillor Cornish, who hasn't been named yet. I'd like to nominate.
Councillor Cornish?
Unfortunately, I resigned from that meeting.
That group, yes.
Sorry, previously as the meeting times are during my work time, so I can't really attend them. So it's a bit of a conflict there for me to try and get there into both. So, but thank you for the nomination.
Councillor Jones?
Can I just flag I wish to speak against this motion?
Do you wish to... Well, let's get the motion moving first. Councillor Zing, you going to speak to it? No, it's already been done. Okay, sorry. Yes. Are there any further nominations, first of all? No? All right. So we have 2 people who've been nominated for those positions. So those names can go into the motion, and now the motion can be debated. So if you have nothing to say, Councillor, you're automatically elected. Congratulations to Councillor Davey and Councillor Wilkins. Now. No. Oh, well, yeah, and that's of course assuming the motion gets through. Your nominations have been accepted. Sorry. All right. Now, neither of you wish to speak, so Councillor Jones, you wish to speak against this motion.
Colleagues, I do not agree with the operating guidelines for the Heritage Reference Group because councillors are being chucked off our own group. The Heritage Reference Group was established for council members of however many number who had an interest in heritage to convene informally to discuss heritage matters. And there are a number of us. And what this is doing is seems to me to be turning into what is very close to a committee, although no doubt we've had legal advice that it isn't quite a committee. And it reduces the opportunities for councillors who have an interest in heritage to participate. And what particularly irks me, I know I'm becoming a grumpy old man, at least my wife says so. What particularly irks me is that there's a commentary that this committee is so important that it should have a minority of council members on it. Well, that's the wrong way round, surely. If something's important, it should have a majority of council members on it. So that's one reason I object to this. I also object to the fact there's not an open-ended number of councillors who are interested in heritage allowed to be on this group that we established for that purpose. So for that reason, I will not be supporting the operating guidelines, and I hope you won't too.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? No one? If there's no one wishing to speak, I'm going to put the motion.
Excuse me,
I'll
Madam
put the
Mayor,
Councillor Wilkins, you wish to speak?
Yeah, can I just ask a question? I wasn't on council when this was the informal group in September 2019. Why did it then change to the group as identified on page 11? Why was it formalised? Why couldn't it be, as Harvey says, Councillor Jones says, a group of interested people? All council should be on the Heritage Reference Group.
You did just hear that one of the reasons that Councillor Cornish can't be on it is because they are held during the day.
But the opportunity to be involved.
I certainly, if we had had more than 2 nominations, I certainly would not have stopped a further nomination anyway.
It should be on, the H word should be on the top of everybody's list.
All right, does anyone else wish to speak? Sorry. Does anyone else wish to speak?
I'd just like to say that I would have nominated Councillor Henschke if she was here. I know it's an area of interest for her, but without her being able to verify whether or not she'd accept the nomination or not, it's pretty hard, you know, not to. But I would have if she was here.
I agree, without an acceptance from her, it's not possible. Right, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Otherwise, I will put the motion. I will go back to Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. I've got a question, and on page 12, there's a table at the bottom, and the first line, 1, it says the administration response is changed to council, but from my reading, there are 3 community reps and 3 staff members. So why does it say in that table change to council and staff?
Through Madam Mayor, because it's very much focusing on who is that group providing their advice to. So that their advice is being provided to council as the corporate entity. Yeah.
Councillor Jennings.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship. 26.5, Ghana and First Nation representation is no longer required. Why is that?
That's because we have the reconciliation group that identifies, and also there was something. Advisory group? No. I will just ask that of administration to make sure that I've got, it's not that I doubt you, but get it correct. The question is why on page 11 of 87, item number 26.5, why is the Ghana First Nation representation no longer required? I can't remember from the meeting.
Through the Mayor, that's addressed in 26.4. 26.4. First Nations cultural heritage is no longer within the group's scope, given this is addressed through the Council's Reconciliation Plan Working Group.
All right, that's just what I said. Okay.
I've got a comment. My comment is...
Your comment isn't actually joining the debate. Okay.
Yep. On page 10 at point 22, it says that the HRG is not intended to be a formal committee of council under the Local Government Act 1999. It is a informal forum for council members and the community to meet, discuss and explore ideas to conserve, enhance and promote the city's valuable heritage and history. And my comment is that that's exactly what is intended with the voice.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment, or otherwise Councillor Zing, you happy for me to put the motion? All those in favour of the motion? Those against? Carried. This one is 11.2 and the CEO is going to remove himself. Councillor Davey,
Thank you, Mayor. I move in accordance with the recommendation that Council receives and notes the CEO Review Committee minutes for the meeting held on the 26th of June and receives and endorses the CEO's 2023-2024 performance plan. I just have a couple of comments. I endorse all of this. These are just nitpicky comments. Can we, when we're writing strategic plan, that we don't say spans across, that we just say spans at number 3, spans all strategic plan principles?
What page are you talking about?
Page 21.
21?
So it's just a bit of an editing. Instead of saying spans across, that we say spans. And the only other question I had...
Page 21 under strategic plan.
You span things, you don't span across. It's just nitpicking, but we're into that tonight. And in terms of the staff at the committee meeting, there's one person here that I don't know, and I just wanted to know who Kyla Soden is, please, because she must be a staff member, but I don't know her.
Mr. Spearman, would you like to respond to that one?
Through the Mayor, she's an employee, just an officer contracted to the People Experience team, and she was brought in to help with the minute taking as Ash King is acting as group manager.
Anything else, Councillor
No,
Davey?
I'm having to move in accordance with that.
I need a seconder. Councillor Cornish. Well, you had your finger on the button and your name is there.
Oh, no, I was just waiting for Councillor Davey to unpress.
Ah,
But
okay.
thank you.
Right.
So, yes, thank you, Councillor Davey. It was a very good process. We spent quite a lot of time, the committee, reviewing all the feedback that we received from the elected members. And as you can see, some of that feedback was incorporated into the revised version, and we came up with some suggestions to make the process a little bit easier next time round and a bit more formalised, so we can, and table some of that work a bit better. So I look forward to the next year in improving on it. Thank you.
Councillor Harvey, did you want to say anything because you were part of that committee as well? No. Okay. I just wanted to make a comment that Rebecca Hunt, who led us through that process, did make a comment about the fact that we have, the CEO has a lot of KPIs. I think she said that the average is about 5 or 6, 4 to 6, and he has 12, I think. So compared to other councils. So that I just found quite interesting, and I thought I would pass it on to all of you. It didn't mean that we reduced his at all. We still had 12, I think. All right, Councillor Jennings, you have a question?
I do, Your Worship. Is that a good thing or a bad thing that he's got so many KPIs? Is he, stretched too far? Are they stretched too far?
I think it's a fair assessment of what we require as a council for him to achieve. I think some of the other councillors take it for granted that there are certain things within the CEO's strategic role, particularly in the case of finance, that is the ultimate job. And so hence there is no mention about finances in there specifically, because that is part of the contractual obligation of doing the job of the CEO, is to manage all financial aspects of council departments, staff, etc. So we've just made it more explicit, I think, for the CEO, and it also means that it's technically it's actually easier potentially for us to do negotiations and also to do appraisals at the end of the year.
Right.
So he's achieved all those things. So we're actually making it in some ways harder for him, because we're being more specific in terms of what we want him to achieve, or him or her.
Well, with the resignation.
Else who has a question? I'd rather the conversation was here focused, thank you. Councillor Hallett, did you have something? That was the appraisal on last year's, all right? Whereas this is setting up the set for what he has to achieve in the next 12 months. So in 12 months' time, this time next year, we'll actually be appraising those KPIs that we have set, we will set tonight. All right? Is that clear for everybody? Okay. No, good. Ask the question, that's fine. Anything else? Oh. Okay. Not sure what's happening, but... All right. I haven't got anyone else on the sheet, on the screen here, so Councillor Davey, are you happy for me to move to put the motion? All those in favour of the motion? Those against? Carried. The next one is 11.3, Era Water, budget review. I think the CEO was going to return for this to answer... Oh no, that was the Brownhill Creek one. Councillor Cornish, you did have your name down, but it's first in, first served. Okay, Councillor Cornish.
Move in accordance with the officer's recommendation, Your Worship, and note that Councillor Hallett had a question about it, so hopefully she'll second the motion, but her microphone is not working, so perhaps...
okay.
Oh,
right.
There we go.
I use the one with the red light.
No, I don't want to, I don't have a question.
I thought you had a question about Era Water. Councillor Cornish remembered.
Oh, question page 50. Oh, yes, I do. Sorry. My question relates to page 50. And if the cash advance limit is 6,135,000 and the operating deficit is 7,244,81, is Era Water technically insolvent? Now, I realise that our relationship with Era Water isn't, we're not directors of the board, but it just concerns me that we're just going ahead, and I know we've discussed this before, but that we're just continuing to support an organisation that is operating at a deficit.
Thank you. So, first part of the question, no, they're not insolvent. So, just clarify that. They're certainly operating within their financial parameters. What you'll find is Era Water is going to operate in an accounting deficit for quite some time when you take into account depreciation in particular. But the goal is within as short a space of time as possible to at least start operating on a cash surplus position. With the recapitalisation that Council just recently approved, looking at the numbers, on our projections, that means that for at least the next 10 years, they will not reach the debt cap and will remain in a solvent position. The meeting I just had a week ago, the board meeting for Era Water, one of our key focal areas is generating external cash, which is what the business needs to take that pressure off. So that's one of the key focal points going forward, to ensure that we don't ever become insolvent, but I'm pleased to report that we are solvent.
Councillor Hallett, you have another question?
Yeah. And this is just in regard to obtaining other users for the water. Have we thought about asking whether residents would like to buy water off of us? It's a good thought, and at this point I'll take any lateral thought on how we can sell water. The volumes involved would make it difficult, and each resident would have to have an individual connection into our Era Water pipe. At this point in time, we focus on connections to our reserves, where
you know, a usage is in, you know, tens to hundreds of tens of megalitres, rather than individual usage, which would be in kilolitres rather than megs. So the cost benefit there wouldn't the cost of a connection would outweigh the benefit there. But I can report that we do have some promising, honestly, promising things. But there are two key sales opportunities before us at the minute, which, should they come off, it looks like about 100 megalitres of water, which would aid our position.
Because
Sorry, Councillor, I've got two other people waiting. So you just sound like you're about to enter debate. So I'll give you a chance to have a think about it again.
Yep.
And if you've got a further question, because in the meantime I have Councillor Turnbull waiting.
Oh, I was just going to say, in regard to residents buying the water, like I live right opposite the connection.
You realise, of course, now you are debating, so you won't be able to debate again.
Okay, that's all right. I would, you know, I would water my garden with the recycled water.
So just to clarify, it's not recycled, but the cost of doing individual connections is prohibitive to the volume. A typical house, I don't know, probably at most might use, you know, 200-300 kilolitres of water. To make any dent per connection, we'd probably be looking at 10 megalitres. So it doesn't stack up for individual domestic use.
Before I get Councillor Turnbull to speak, I do need a seconder. So are you prepared to second this motion, Councillor Turnbull? Otherwise, I just need to get someone else. No. Councillor Davey seconding. Thank you, Councillor Davey. And you'll retain your right to speak later. All right, now Councillor Turnbull.
Quick question. What outside sales do they have at this stage? Because we hear about they're going to have lots of people buying their water, but they never seem to eventuate much.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to provide that information, but I don't have it on hand right this minute, but I'm happy to provide.
Councillor Jones.
I've got a question, if I may. In Council's 30 June accounts, which presumably are currently preparing, will you be impairing our investment in Era Water?
I'm going to say my understanding is no, but I'll take that on notice and get back to you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Oh, sorry.
Just if I may, Madam Mayor, just to help Councillor Turnbull, if I can draw your attention to page 53, looking at the comprehensive income statement, there's a line, the second line in the income statement, water sales non-council. So that's the sales line that we're looking. That we're looking.
Non-councils.
Oh, sorry, like the names. You like the names of the businesses?
Yeah.
I'll have. There's 2 schools at the minute, but I'll get the names and provide them to you.
I don't have anyone else on the screen. Councillor Davey, do you wish to speak as a seconder? All right. I'll go back to put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Those against? Motion's carried. I'll move to the next one, which is 11.4. Councillor Jones, you wanted to withdraw it, but if anyone else wishes to, they may.
But again, quickly.
Go ahead, Councillor Jones.
Right. I will move the officer's recommendation. But that's because I want to register a protest vote against the motion. And I thought it would be quicker if I don't have a majority for the motion to be defeated, for the motion potentially to succeed rather than it to be defeated and someone have to run the whole motion again. So noting that I want to leave at 10:30. Look, I am not in favour of this board. for a number of reasons. One, they are creek destroyers, which we have a motion later in the meeting to discuss. Secondly, they have manifestly failed to raise the money from the Commonwealth Government that is needed to do this project. Notably, at the last federal election, the MP for Boothby promised $5 million for this scheme, which they still haven't managed to collect. I mean, I can understand not collecting money that hasn't been promised, but how do you not collect money, $5 million, that has been promised? And thirdly, one thing that really, really annoyed me, and this came out in my questions on their budget, which incidentally, getting answers was like getting blood out of a stone. Cedar Woods were required under their contract to build the detention basin at Glenside. And Cedar Woods, being a commercial business, said, "Oh, we don't really want to build a full detention basin. Can we build a smaller one?" And this subsidiary said, "Yes, we'll just make our Adelaide Parklands wetlands bigger." I mean, how stupid is that? That ratepayers are paying for something more than we have to, and Cedar Woods have got away with it. So, look, I cannot vote to reappoint these board members. And even worse is the idea we'll give them a 10% pay rise. These guys are already paid more than anybody else on a board of a regional subsidiary. You know, you think about the work that the chairman of Era Water does, and he's paid an oily rag, and these guys are getting paid $15,000 to bury creeks in concrete. It just annoys me so much that I will vote against this motion, and I hope you will too.
Thank you. I seek a seconder for the motion. Councillor Cornish.
Happy to second this lovely motion as it's been presented to us by the administration, and I'm hoping there's not huge amounts of debate and we can just vote on it. Thank you.
Councillor Turnbull.
I've got a couple of questions, please. How long have these two people been on the board already? That's Rob Gregory and Rachel Barrett.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just going to go down to the report. And you'll note for point 16, through you, Madam Mayor, point 16 talks about the fact that Rob Gregory's, he is coming to the end of his first 3-year term, and likewise for the other board member that's been put forward.
Okay. And number 2 question is, why have we never had a workshop on this project? We really don't know much about it.
I am happy to arrange a workshop. I think it's currently being arranged now from my team, so it will be coming to you reasonably soon.
Can I sneak a third one in? That is, I agree with Councillor.
No, I've got Councillor Davey next, and then I'll come back, and our policy says 2. Councillor Davey.
One more question.
All right, do you have a seconder? Councillor Zing, you're seconding it. All right, then the motion is put. All those in favour? Sorry, I have to vote on it first. All those in favour of the motion being put? All right, that means, and those against? Then the motion is put.
Division.
Yeah, now you put the motion.
Okay, no division's been called. You can't
do a division on procedural motion.
Can't do it on a procedural motion. Okay, so now I will put the motion. Those in favour of the motion, and then you can call your division. All right, those in favour of the motion? Councillor Turnbull, could you just turn your microphone off, please? All right, those against? All right, the motion is carried.
Division.
Division has been called, so if you voted for the motion, please stand. So we have Councillor Cornish, Councillor Hubel, Councillor Jennings, Councillor Davey, and Councillor Zing, and Councillor Harvey. So that's 6, right? Those against, Councillor Hallett, Councillor Turnbull, Councillor Jones, Councillor Wilkins, and the motion was carried. It has been about 5 years since we had a presentation from Brownhill Creek. In fact, I think you were, Councillor Wilkins, were on the council when that last presentation was done by Peter. Yeah, it was quite a while ago. Anyway, so I did discuss it today with the CEO. I think it's important that we do have a presentation from Brownhill Creek so everyone understands a bit more about it. Okay.
Madam Mayor, I think it's worth pointing out that at the bottom of the report,
yes,
I think it talks about, I've mentioned organising a briefing anyway. Oh, no. No, I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry.
No, we were talking. Councillor Turnbull, oh no, Councillor Davey, you've got questions.
Thank you. I just had one quick question, and that is about the... Oh, I've already asked it about the Consul General of China, so that's already been answered.
I'm happy to second the motion.
Councillor Cornish, you're seconding the motion. Right, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Questions on notice you've received, expressions of interest concern regarding Brownhill Creek Keswick Council subsidiary. And behavioural management, that one doesn't apply anymore, does it? Because we've done it, covered it.
Yes, been withdrawn.
That's been withdrawn. So that one's withdrawn. We have just one left, but we have only 14 minutes left. So I think it's Councillor Jones, isn't it? We do have time at our next council meeting to put this onto the agenda, I have been advised, and it's not urgent tonight that it has to be done. It is up to you, Councillor Jones, to, if you wish to put it off into the next council meeting, then it's fine with the CEO.
Can I move that we adjourn this to the next meeting?
Right, so we move it, seconded Councillor Hubel. All those in favour of adjourning this item to the next council meeting, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. Those against? So the motion is carried. So we're adjourning that one to the next meeting. Is there any other urgent business before I close the meeting? Yes, Councillor Davey?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe Councillor Harvey is owed an apology. At the last meeting, when we were talking about the behavioural policy, she was accused of breaching confidentiality when she mentioned my expenses. Yes. And I'd just like the record to be corrected that she did not breach confidentiality, because that is a matter of public record in the minutes.
I'm checking on that because I understood that that discussion was a confidential. Okay.
Yep.
The discussion was, but the minutes became public.
Okay. All right, so then I will apologise for that, Councillor Harvey. I was not aware that the minutes, because you would have known that I was not in the meeting when that was discussed. So I was not aware that that was made public in the minutes. So apologies. I will close the meeting at 10:18.